First thing out of the gate.
That'd be easy.
It's going to be quiet soon. I think as soon as we move on to item 2,
let them know they want to stay. You're welcome.
You're very welcome. I didn't have to be there. And helps all our parents.
There's no, he's not here today. There's not a judge.
No judges.
Wrong branch of government. You'll learn about that later.
Oh, yeah.
They should be learning about
Okay. It is 7 o'clock. It's time to start our meeting. It's a posted time. And if we start early, somebody might say, you started the meeting early. So we'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. We haven't had this many people here since we talked about chickens. So it's good to have people out here to see. We have a citizen comment period later on, and there's a form to fill out if you'd like to speak during that time. There's also a couple of public hearings, and there's a form to fill out there on the podium out there. If you want to speak during those times, fill those out and bring them up and give them to Wendy. Mayor Shepherd is out of town this evening, so I'm Kent Bush. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem, and we have an opening ceremony tonight that will be conducted by Council Member Peterson.
Thank you. Will you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee this evening as we gather together as a community to do the business of our city and to recognize those who serve and who have accomplished things that help make Clearfield that we might have by protection, that we might be able to deliberate in wisdom this evening, and ask that thou please bless all of those from our community who serve and protect, those in our fire, our police, our armed forces, and those who are away from their families at this time. We pray for their safe return and for their protection. We ask that we might have thy spirit to be with us and do this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, Council, we have a set of minutes from November 28th policy session. I have one correction that I've talked to Nancy and Wendy about. My wife's name was incorrect on the visitors section of that, so they're going to fix that. Is there any other corrections or additions to those minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 28th, 2017 policy session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our first item tonight is the recognition of Clearfield's youth football team. Is that what you guys are here for? All right. Councilmember Peterson is going to do this, so we'll turn the time over to her.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the council and also our community services director, Eric House, to come and join me up here, and we'll make our presentation to you guys. Here because for the first time since early 90s, the Mini Bowl trophy came back to Clearfield because of these guys sitting right here. So this is kind of a big deal. So tonight, what we're going to do, since we've got a lot of people here, first of all, we'd like to recognize the coaching staff. Coach Belford, if I could have you and your assistants come on up. We have each of our coaches, and then also for the boys here tonight. And come through here, we've got, let me show this right here, just on behalf of to just tell you how much we appreciate what you've done, first of all, as a coaching staff, and to the boys, how hard you've worked this season. And then we also have our mayor and council coin here for you guys, to maybe put that right next to your trophy to say how proud we are as a city of what you guys pulled off this year. This was huge. So to Coach Belford, I'm going to hand you that right there. Thank you. Okay, and then where is Coach Hasty? Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, and Daniel. I'll have you slide up the front. Solis. Last one.
Nope, he's not here.
Vander Tulin. That's maybe a little bit better right there. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, boys, before we pull you up, I'm going to turn this over to your Coach Belford has something right here he'd like to present.
On behalf of the team, we want to appreciate the council members for not only doing this, but there was a lot of people in attendance at the championship game, and I want to thank them and recognize them from Clearfield Rec Department. Curtis, I've worked with him for a lot of time in the coaching. Pat, Spencer, Jody, they're all great. I can't remember who all from the actual city was there, but thank you for supporting us. Again, since it's the 90s or whatnot, I've been a part of the coaching program for 12 years. There's not an amount of words that go into trying to win when you got these other cities, age groups, and they stack teams against us. Every year, your Clearfield kids in these age groups are going against, they're the only team in their age group going against these stacked teams. And to make it to the playoffs is an achievement, but to win it all, and it took us in a double overtime, was amazing. I'll recognize those boys as the best athletes, not only in the state, the city, but that I've ever coached. I thank them, and I thank the city. We've actually put together a plaque from the Mini Bowl to present to the city along with this football signed by all the kids, and again, I just want to say thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have each of the boys, we're going to call you guys up. We've got a certificate. We'll have you guys come up this way, back out to your seat. How does that sound? Let's do this. You guys over there, and we'll get a group shot of you guys when we're done. How does that sound? That way if your parents want to get a picture too. So we'll start right here. Blake Williamson. Hey, Blake, right here. Go ahead. Shake your hand. Congratulations. There you go. Okay. Hey, Tulin. Hey. Okay. Marley, come on up. Okay. Sumter. Come on up. Jacob. Great job. There you go, bud. Okay. Solis. Hey, congratulations. I got yours right here. Dash. Awesome job, dude. There you go. Rylan. Okay. Ren. Who Ren? Oh, okay. We'll hold this for him right now. Okay. Moral. Oh. Well, Matthew's awesome too. Okay. Noah. Oh, grab your coin. There you go. Okay. McDaniel. This kid crushed it this year. Okay, Robert. There you go. Good job this year. There you go. Jesse Lopez. All right, Jesse. Great job. You did awesome. Oh, right here. One more. There you go. Hayden. Where are you at? Hayden. Great job, Hayden. Okay, Kelly. Okay, Zachary. Good job. Harvey. Where's Harvey? Great job. Cohen. Awesome job, dude. Braxton. Awesome job. Brody. Braden. Julian. Leland. Making your way. Sean. Oh, grab my James. And last but not least, Ryan. Sorry, Riken. Okay, can I get all? Come on in, please. You have all the boys in there? Come on in, guys. Okay. You're on 3. 1, 2, 3. Did we get it?
Hey,
Parents, real quick. Parents, real quick, just a couple things for you. We do broadcast our city council meetings. This is going out live on Facebook, so if you'd like to share this with family or friends, you can go to the city Facebook page and you can share the YouTube link with that if you've got grandparents or family that weren't able to be here. And if you'd like to visit, you're welcome to. We've got our lobby down on the first floor if you'd like to do that. If not, we've got more city business you're welcome to stay for. So thank you guys. Congratulations. Thank you.
I can't believe they're not staying for the comprehensive financial report presentation.
I know.
There's still more stuff.
No one.
We certainly know how to clear a room.
Should have put some agenda items before it.
We could go through the
Age by age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they got here
And see.
All right, that was exciting, wasn't it? Always good to have football players. Our next item is consideration for adoption resolution 2017 R22 of the City Council of Clearfield City, Utah, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $7,500,000 aggregate principal amount of, this still says sales tax revenue bonds, isn't it?
Mayor Pro Tem, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Security Tax Revenue Bond Series 2018 and related matters. JJ, are you going to talk about this some more?
Sorry. But we discussed this item in work session last week. This is a bond issuance, and this parameters resolution kind of sets the most conservative, the maximum parameters that could be possible, but in reality, when we actually take action to issue the bonds, they would be probably a lesser amount, a lesser interest rate, a lesser term, number of years, and so on. So the purpose of these, what on the agenda we call them sales tax bonds, sales tax revenue bonds, but in the new resolution, parameters resolution that you received this afternoon, as we made some further edits, we decided it's more accurate to call them. So that's just to clarify that the intent is to service the debt through the energy sales and use tax revenue that we get, which is the tax that we get from the power bill and the gas bill that we all pay. So again, the parameters are a maximum of $7.5 million, maximum term of 25 years. I think it was 7% interest maximum, and the rest is pretty self-explanatory in that resolution, however. And the purpose would be to acquire property and improvements and make improvements that are of a governmental purpose. We have here with us tonight, our financial advisor, Jonathan Ward, and from our bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell, we have Aaron Wade. Questions that require their attention, they can speak to those questions, but are there any questions at all for me tonight?
I do. The 7%, and I realize that's not the interest rate that we're taking on, that's a cap, but it seems high as a cap. I would think that for the interest rates to jump that much, the economic situation would have to change quite a bit as well. And if it were that large of a jump, we might want to reconsider what we're doing as a city if it was impacted and things like that as well. So
certainly, and the fact that this resolution, assuming it gets passed tonight, does not commit us to issuing the bonds. We can still pull out after tonight if it becomes just, you know, unrealistic to move forward with the issuance. But Jonathan, would you want to address the interest rate question?
I think Councilmember Young is accurate that 7% is very high. We're estimated at 5%, assuming a 15-year term, taxable. If for some reason we wanted to actually sell bonds with a 25-year amortization and we were in a rising interest rate environment, we could theoretically see higher coupons, even though the average of those and the actual cost to the city would be less than 7%. So there's a distinction there in that rate. 7% represents the maximum coupon at which an investor could buy the bonds, but the actual cost to the city would be a blend of multiple coupons in an amortization schedule. So bonds are a little different than our mortgages, where we have one rate associated with the financing. There's one rate associated with each principal payment on the bond schedule. So it is high. Conceivably, it could go up that high in a taxable environment, but probably not that high, in particular over a short window of time. If the council wanted to make an amendment to change that from a 7 to, say, a 6, we could get away with that without, I think, undue stress or undue concern from a marketing ability. But that's really the intent, is to provide as much maximum flexibility as we can. Right now, 5% coupons on tax-exempt investments are very standard, even though a yield to an investor would be something. They want a higher coupon, they pay for it, and the bond mathematics behind that protects the investor's liquidity and ability to buy or trade that security later on. But I don't think reducing that, if it's a concern, down to a 6 would be too limiting, if that's what you want to do.
thank you.
Anything else, Bruce?
I do. I had a couple of questions, and I'm not sure if it'd be directed to you or to the other gentleman who's here with us. I'm not sure who to direct that. 2 issues of concern. Number one, was the wording that you have there as far as the committee or that group of decision makers, specifically the wording on there that would grant that authority to them individually rather than collectively, and then further than any authorized individual. That my concern there is would there be an ability to limit that scope so that it was a group decision? Just for an example, you've got one of them would be like a finance director, but it would give that individual the ability potentially to make a decision where it seems like that would go through a city manager, you know, if it was in a regular course of business. So that seems very broad. So that's my first one. So thoughts on that?
I'll address why we build it in with that sort of flexibility, and then Aaron can address modifications and possible solutions. That particular feature was built in back 4 years ago into the statute to be able to delegate authority from the council to a collective body or individuals who would be able to, on behalf of the city, lock in terms, conditions of the transaction. And the reason being, we found city councils meeting twice per month, in some cases 1 time per month, and we would generally sell bonds, price bonds, on that day that the council met. Sometimes it didn't make sense to sell on a Tuesday. It made more sense from a volume and a supply of municipal bonds in the market to sell on Thursday. And sometimes that Thursday happened to be the first of the month rather than the end of the month. So the idea was, and the council's going to bless those and then delegate to one individual, two individuals, a group of individuals, the authority to tell an investor or a group of investors, we like the rates, we like the fees, we like the term, and we're going to run with that. But that one individual or that group of individuals isn't authorized to actually consummate the execution of the bond issue. There'd be a bond purchase agreement that has to be signed by the mayor and attested by the city recorder, and about 20 other documents that have to be signed and sealed by the mayor and the city recorder. Or there might be a finance director who signs the tax form or the tax certificate associated with the transaction, or there's a general certificate, there's an attorney's opinion. It all has to be signed the actual transaction. So the thought was, if we delegate authority to staff, we're going to improve the flexibility of our marketing of the bonds. We can do it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday if needs be, or a Monday, whenever the market makes the most sense, and we can try to approach investors with at the time where it makes sense for the city to get their money, lock in their money, as well as terms and conditions. We ran into a case recently where the CEO, the CFO, the COO were all released. They had all been delegated authority as a group. One of the CFO was in place, still a new CFO. The other two committee members were to know others available to actually execute. So it actually created some complications in terms of, do we like this transaction? It clearly fits within the parameters and what was authorized and what was contemplated, but two of the three of the committee were no longer present. They hadn't reappointed new CEOs, COOs to help sign. So it just created an extra step. The board had to convene a special meeting. They did. They reconfigured who was authorized to sign. It wasn't a big deal other than it was a special meeting. So the intent here is, we're not sure if the mayor or mayor pro tem are going to be on a cruise and unavailable to sign. We're not sure if staff's going to be here, if you have a city manager or finance director at the time. So we want as much optionality or flexibility as we can. But clearly this is your document and your resolution, so you can change it to however you propose, and Aaron can give us some suggestions on how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, something that we commonly see on documents like this is you could say grant to any two of the following, so at least two people have to come together, the mayor and the finance director, the mayor and the city manager both have to sit down and agree to it. That's something that you could easily do. You could form a committee and just, like Jonathan said, you want to just leave yourself flexibility so that the city doesn't find itself in a bind and have to go to extraordinary measures to get the favorable terms.
So this is something, I'm sorry. This is something that was a concern to me too, but I like the idea of a balance of having an elected official and staff together. I understand your discussion. It seems to me it would be more prudent to have at least two somehow involved in that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I was just going to offer some insight. So previously we've utilized this method and very similar language. And in reality, the way that this plays out is, there are a flurry of emails that everybody, including people who aren't even on this list, are all included on. It is very much a joint decision and conversation. Previously, that's exactly how that played out. We're all interested in the exact same thing, which is getting the very best possible deal for the city. And so it isn't anything, I know Rich would never make that decision on his own, neither would I or any others who are involved. But we're happy to, as far as staff go, we're happy with whatever language the council feels comfortable with. I previously with very similar language.
Just as a policy, I think any two could make sense, just as much as everybody's on the same board and you know, it's,
No,
that's
just having
the
two.
auditor in me that's.
Yeah, well, yeah. you're
It's good to have a
incredible.
good policy instead.
Just have to. And I mean, I understand, you know, that it's still, all of this is still contingent that you stay within those parameters. I mean, there's not going to be, even with broad interpretation of that, the ability for someone to overstep that even unintentionally, but I like the two, having two. The other question would just be, when would we be able to see Exhibit B and C, to be able to look at the indenture and to look at, you know, as soon as possible, just on a comfort level B? So I'm not sure how the timing on that works, when we'd expect to see that.
So there is a form of indenture and a bond purchase agreement. So I think it's over here. So there's just initial drafts, you know, we'll plug in numbers
Sure.
and everything like that. But there is a final copy of those documents that I brought up today that you could look at and review.
And
I'm
those
happy
get,
to
sorry.
I can scan them and get them out to council tomorrow, or even tonight if they.
These
prefer.
documents aren't in final form, like the resolution says. They'll be attached as an exhibit in substantially final form and held in the recorder's office for a period of at least 30 days. So residents can come in, council people can come in and review those and get a sense for what this looks like. The indenture is sort of the umbrella legal document that spells out a relationship between the city and a trustee. The trustee acts on behalf of multiple sets of, if there's multiple sets of bonds sold that use this security source. So it'll align basically all the what ifs. In event of default, this is what happens. In event of prepayment, this is what needs to be in place. In the event of changing or payment structure and cash flow, this is the way it all gets lined up. And then every single bond issue, there may not be more than one. It may just be this issue. But every single bond issue under this umbrella legal document would be sold with the same provision, so all bondholders get treated the same way. And those details are fun to read if you're Aaron. But and Stuart probably would like that. A great request. And so they'll be available for at least 30 days for everyone to read and be familiar with. When the transaction is actually approved, term certificate is signed, bond purchase agreement is signed, those documents will be finalized as well. There'll be a general indenture and a supplemental indenture that pertains to this specific transaction. And it supplements the general. There'll be possibly a second supplemental indenture that supplements the general indenture as well, if there's another series of bonds at some point in the future. Did I explain that all right? Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions there. One of them is the total amount. This may not be for you. It may be for can you give me kind of a budget of where that money is anticipated to go?
Absolutely. And Councilmember Peterson asked me a similar question earlier this afternoon. We start with what we talked about previously in a work session of purchasing some property, and you'll recall the amount that we talked about there. In addition to that, there could be ancillary parcels adjacent north and south. We figure another $1 million, roughly. That's kind of just a shot in the dark ballpark number. So another $1 million for additional property to acquire. There may also be some need for bond proceeds to be used for modifications to the property, relocations, cleaning up the property, so on and so forth. And then we've also talked about, last week in the work session, we talked about all those things rolled up, and we did a lot of rounding, right? So we figured, okay, maximum, we should need 7.5. Hopefully it's less than that, but yeah.
So there was some discussion, I think, last week, or when we talked about this before, about having one sale of the bonds. Is that still, or is there talk now about it being incremental, or is that?
Jonathan?
No, just one sale, one bond issue at this point. The legal documents are just set up so that you don't have to come back and recreate the will anytime and every time you sell these types of bonds. For instance, the city has sold over the course of 30-plus years, water revenue bonds secured by the city's water revenues. So were used 30 years ago that govern any outstanding water bonds are still in place. So that's the idea with the legal structure here. The indenture, a general indenture and supplemental is you set up the documentation today so you don't have to come back 5 years from now, 10 years from now and recreate the same wheel, and potentially get stuck in a bind where you sell something, where you have to sell something that's subordinate to something that's outstanding already, and it comes at a higher cost.
So, and I apologize for for my confusion here, and educate me. So we have this ceiling of 7.5 or something like that. Are you saying so we can obtain $1 million, $2 million more the next year, or something as the need arises? Is that within this, or do we have to take all the 7.5 in one swoop?
What's contemplated in the resolution tonight is all of the $7.5 million or something less than that in one fell swoop.
Okay.
The concept of incremental advance has happened on occasion in rare circumstances where a city says, we want to do up to 7.5, but we don't have one project in mind. We want to do, for instance, roads. And we want to do a little bit of road here and then a little bit of road 6 months later or a year later and another little bit of roads over here a year later. That has been done before, but it's usually with a whole lot of advantage to the city. Meaning if you're going to draw down, you usually don't get one interest rate, if you will, or one set of terms. If you're going to do incremental advances, you have different interest rate at whatever the market is when you make that draw. So we're not talking about an incremental advance or incremental draw type of structure. Bonds are sold, all of them at once, for your project that you're identifying now, as opposed to setting up, if you will, a line of credit and being able to draw down from that line what you want when you want to do it.
So the incremental, they could have different interest rates.
It could. If you did incremental advance types of bonds, yes, most likely it would. What I was referring to contemplates something 5 years apart, but you still have the first series outstanding, and you have bondholders that were told one thing. They were told, here's your security and here's what you get. 5 years later, there's another project and it fits perfectly with this type of security, and you don't, and you have these other bonds outstanding. You wouldn't be able to sell bonds with the same structure without subordinating it to the first series of bonds, which comes at a significant cost to the city. So we're basically saying we're setting up a framework so you'd have options in the future that aren't costly and allow you to be able to use the same security source for another project when at this point that you would need it.
So I'm obviously concerned about overextending us, things like that. So can you address what would be the best case if everything went really well and minimal costs and everything like that? I'm thinking about, so what would, in the best case that, not being unrealistic, but everything is good, the way we could anticipate it, what would be, just bluntly, how much would we be paying every year on this bond, assuming we got reimbursed for property acquisition and everything like that? And
right. Yeah. So this goes back to the conversation we were having in the work session, where we would anticipate, assuming we are probably selling that at some point in time. And so we discussed building into the bond issue the flexibility to prepay and again, these details haven't been negotiated yet, right? But we do desire the ability to pay off a large sum within the first 2 or 3 years, probably. So we'll work with Jonathan and whoever the buyer is to negotiate a structure that accomplishes that or allows for that. And but worst case scenario, think we talked about debt service of about $750,000 a year.
So that would be the worst case then, and that would be, we own the property and can't do anything with it. Is that the worst
Yeah.
case? Yeah.
But the point then is that we do have these revenues that can secure that payment. Or really, the bonds don't have anything to do, it's just the revenue.
Yeah, we do, but it would certainly, that would be a lot for us to take out of our.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was, my other question was what would be, and that would be the worst case. So the best case would be.
Best case, and Jonathan can chime in here, but we're able to prepay a large sum of that amount of bonds that we issued, and we're left with $1.5 million, $2 million that we're carrying for 10 years or 15 years or something of that sort. And we could structure that so that, in one case, if the debt service, annual debt service remains the same, then we're paying that off all the quicker. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Jonathan. Or we could structure it so that the annual debt service out for a longer term.
So you say best case scenario. Now, so we're striking out even the possibility of recouping everything.
Well, being that the city would be issuing these bonds, the city would have to be made whole. So the CDRA would very likely have some role to play in our vision for this corridor and what we hope to accomplish. And there's a separate revenue stream that would come into play there with property tax increment.
Understood. What I'm trying to say is this deal, I realize it's not likely. We're trying to incentivize a change to the downtown area to some degree, but is it foreseeable that the markets would appreciate enough that possibility of development that we could recover the cost into that property?
I'm very optimistic, and I'll say maybe to Councilmember Phipp's point, I would never make this type of decision based on a best case scenario. But I do believe that it's been demonstrated to us very clearly. There's significant interest in the property. The property itself has so many great features. We know that there are many developers. I think it's very likely that we find and are able to take our pick of a number of development partners who've already expressed interest. Some groups that, frankly, we think highly of and I think would come in and do a good job. My best case scenario, I think, is fairly optimistic. I'm in pursuit of this and our ability to recover a majority, if not all, of our costs that we're exposed to at this point.
Well, and I'm not being critical because I think we need to invest, and I understand that, but this one, so that's one thing. Well, if everything goes really well, we still, I think to Bruce's point, we're still going to be owing something.
Well,
So.
Have a range of expectations, I guess.
Yeah.
Just to know that our target, we're hoping best case to recoup everything, and otherwise it's a negotiation factor, and we got to find out what's out there. And like you said, it's an investment in Clearfield.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. Are we serious about it or are we not?
Yeah. A different question is, so there was a change in the wording from sales to excise. Was that rationale behind that?
Yeah, that was my suggestion because you already have outstanding about $9 million of sales tax revenue bonds. There are investors across the country who own Clearfield City sales tax bonds, and there are rating agencies who review that series of bonds every 2 years. So if we go out and we are labeling these also sales tax revenue bonds, and it creates confusion in the finance department when the rating agencies see this and they say, wait, you're possibly layering on a couple million more of sales tax revenue bonds, and then we go through this process of saying, wait, no, it's a different sales tax. Those prior sales tax bonds pledge 1% local option sales tax, that's it. Bonds that pledge the energy sales tax. Both sales taxes in a general sense are excise taxes, which means a transaction tax, and it's statutorily referred to as excise tax revenue bonds. And there are a lot of excise taxes. There's Class C road revenues, for instance, that are called excise taxes as well. But we're simply changing the nomenclature in order to clarify at a glance, these are different types of bonds. They're not secured by the same revenue source.
Okay. I've got a couple of specific questions on this, on the actual document itself. So, and some of this in my, so page, you have that there. And can you just educate me on this, what this last sentence means, no provision of this resolution? In like 10 words or, you know?
Yeah, so it talks about, no provision of this resolution will create a general obligation of the city of Clearfield or the state of Utah. So if you have a general obligation debt, that means if you're not able to make your payment, that essentially the entire, taxing authority of the city could be used to pay the debt. So for instance, bondholders could sue and say, you'd have to raise your taxes to pay the debt. This is just stating that under no circumstance will that be the case. The only recourse that bondholders have are these specific excise taxes that are pledged.
Okay. That's good, because I was thinking maybe that's what it means, and so that's good that I got that. So section 11, let's see, I think page 6, is that, I'm trying to find it now. Page 8.
Yeah.
Okay, the last line just says not to exceed $10 million.
So there's, let me just make sure, this is the bank qualification section here. So there's certain tax laws that for issuers that issue under $10 million in a given year, there's a special exemption for banks that purchase those bonds. So it means that if Clearfield City issues less than $10 million in bonds in the year 2018, a bank could come in and buy that and would give you a better rate because they get special tax treatment for that bond.
Okay.
That's a really good question. It should, of that section says if these bonds are issued as tax exempt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because under the taxable structure, this incentive doesn't apply. And I think staff was reading this and wanted to X it out, cross it out, but Aaron and his group said, let's just leave it in just in case.
Okay.
If we can do this project on a tax exempt basis under the IRS regulations, saves the city money. And so that would be sort of the intent and the reason why we'd want to leave that in there.
Okay. So there is a potential it'll be tax-free then. I mean, you said before it's not very good, but the door is open for that. If it,
we don't know what the heck's going on with tax reform. We'll keep everything on the table just in case.
Okay. So my final question is just with the concept of the prepay, that you'd mentioned before. I didn't see any discussion in this, but that would just be part of the negotiation of the execution of the bond documents then. So it doesn't need to be in here then.
Not in this document, but you will find that concept in the general indenture that Nancy will keep in her office for review. It's not called prepayment generally, it's called
under optional redemption or extraordinary redemption.
Oh, okay.
And so that will speak, the general indenture speaks generally to that redemption feature or prepayment feature. Then the supplemental indenture, which is specific to these bonds, will address payment provision that once is negotiated would be codified basically in these documents.
Okay. That's all I have. I appreciate your expertise and your help. This is really...
Thank you, Vern, and everybody for your comments and questions. Are there any other questions or comments for anyone? If not, I will entertain a motion on this resolution.
Your Honor, I would move to approve resolution 2017R-22, the City Council of Clearfield, Utah, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 7 $1,500,000 aggregate principal amount of sales tax of excise 2018 and related matters with the, and I'm not sure how to word this, with the addendum of the wording change to have two, how do I say this? You know what I mean?
Two people to have to
two
approve
people
it.
to form the decision body. And authorize the mayor pro tem?
Mayor.
The mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Do,
Did we,
before
yeah, I
we
was gonna
vote,
ask
do-
that.
and I'd like to invite discussion. I'm not exactly sure on the matter myself, but as far as the interest rate, do we
Yeah,
want to
6%.
limit that a little bit more? Just to say if things change, we want to come back and relook at it, or sounds like.
I'm open,
It sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that there could be, to consider 6%, we could do that without unduly affecting our ability to market this and to cap that and bring that down a full percentage? Is that a fair assertion?
Yeah, I was
In
going
that-
to ask that
in
too,
that
on
case,
the
I'd say-
6%.
With,
I'd
what's
like
the,
to see
that
that in there,
with 6%?
So then
Yeah.
I'd amend my motion to include that, to place the ceiling of the interest rate at 6%.
Does the second concur?
We had a,
Hmm?
we need another.
Then
second.
ask if the second
Is that all right
concurs.
with the second? Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote, right? Councilmember Roper,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Do I have to vote too?
You can choose to vote, yes.
I vote aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is the CAFR. Rich or Heather? Who's going to do that?
Good evening. My name is Heather Christofferson, and I work at Ulrich & Associates. We are the independent auditor for the city. A couple quick things. I wanted to say thank you to Rich. Quickest we've done this? It went really well this year. So I wanted to say thank you to him and his staff. I also wanted to point out that this is as of almost 6 months ago. This is June 30, 2017. You know, there's lots of discussion happening tonight on current events. I just wanted to point that out. So there's 155 pages here. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to hit a few of the key pages. First of all, page 15, this is the independent auditor's report. Most important page in the report. This basically says everything in here is correct materially and is presented fairly. The next section of the report goes from page 18 to page 30. This is the management discussion and analysis. It is an overview of how the city has done through the year and points out key transactions. Please stop me if you have any questions. The next section is the government-wide section. It's the statement of net position, which starts on page 32. We've got 2 pages there, and then it goes on over to page 34. This is balance sheet and income statement, what you would be used to normal business. It's part of reporting requirements. It's not how you manage the city, so it's good information, but it would be really hard to dissect these specific statements to get information. What you're really looking at is how you manage the city, which really starts on page 36. This is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. I wanted to point out, first column on the left is the general fund. We've got amounts on page 37 for committed, assigned, and unassigned. For state compliance purposes, this is what the state is looking at and asking us to review if it is above state law on current year revenues. So for the 2017 year, that unassigned or unreserved amount is around $6 million. That means that the city is over their limit, 25% of revenues, by about $2 million. This is the only state compliance requirement that we're reporting on the last few pages, and it has been a comment in the last 2 years. We have a schedule in the back, I believe it's page 127, that shows the history of this fund balance calculation, and you can see how the city has done over the last 10 years. Law has changed. I believe that 25% happened in 2013. But if you'd like to look at that in more detail, again, that's on page 27.
Heather, Your Honor, if I may just add a comment here. Heather has noted about $2 million over the 25% cap that's set by the state. However, in the current fiscal year, FY18, about 1.8 million of that has been allocated for expenditure. So I wish there were, the full $2 million there that were available for projects, but we have already allocated a large majority of that amount.
Thank you.
As of June 30th.
Yeah. Okay. Next, I want the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is page 40 and 41. Something odd that happened in the 16-17 year was refunding of some bonds and the timing of the payment of those bonds. You can see in the current year, first column again on the left, towards the bottom, it's the third number from the bottom. It says that we have a net change in fund balance of $9 million negative. That is just a function of how or at what point those bonds were refunded and paid. You didn't spend $9 million into the hole. I think that was all I wanted to point out on page 41. Starting on page 43, comparisons. As you can see at the bottom of page 43, you had planned on getting 18.7 million. That's second column from the left over, very bottom. But you actually got 19.5. So you anticipated less than you actually received. You received almost $800,000 more than you thought you were going to. And along those same lines, let's see here, page 47, bottom of the page, you also spent 1.7 less than you had planned on spending. And you can see throughout those pages between the variance with final budget, which is the right-hand column, so you can see what departments and okay, page 50 and 51. This is the proprietary funds. So we've got the utility type funds, and then on the far right is the internal service funds. What I wanted to point out here was second from the bottom is unrestricted. Typically we say this line all the way across, so it starts with on the left 921,000. That's the line I'm looking at. This is available for future spending, just by virtue of it being unrestricted. It doesn't mean that you have $4.7 million to spend in the water fund. It's just a reporting function. Pages 52 and 53. This is the income statement side of the proprietary funds. I wanted to point out on page 53, change in net position. It's the third line from the bottom. If you go all the way towards the right, there's a total column. What this shows is that spent into your net position, $310,000, 309. But that's more of a function of what was disposed of during the year and depreciation. It wasn't necessarily cash at the door. Those are non-cash items. And that is all I was going to go over. There are, on page 122 through page 144, just compares the last 10 years, various schedules on debt, change in net position, fund balance, etc. Any other questions for me?
Any other questions, comments? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Our next item is a public hearing to consider amendments to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget. Do you want to, Rich, read the background, or who's going to read the background?
Mayor and Council, we went over these, or Mayor Pro Tem and Council, we went over these a couple weeks ago in work session. So this is just we didn't have the final numbers on these top amendments for council compensation at the time, so this is the final numbers. I'm glad the auditor's here because she asks about proof that we did these budget amendments in a public meeting, so she's here, she saw it, so I don't have to show her this later. So anyway, on council compensation, we had, you see in council tablets, we've moved that up to the compensation just based off the discussions from a couple weeks ago. And then doing that, I discovered that we probably under budgeted those tablets by 25. We misbudgeted those. So the net increase for all of these funds with moving everything around is $7,000. But if you take out, you need to take out about $2,500 to show the real cost because those devices were under budgeted. So really the net increase is $4,500 for the rest of the year. Then also, Mayor and Council, the Air Show sponsorship is an amendment to our fiscal 18 budget. And in addition, contracted services for the Maricold Building mural project. Any questions up to this point so far? Okay. And then moving on to CD admin, contracted services for Better City for redevelopment plan for Maybe Place. Station area plan for Clearfield Station, but there is also an anticipated $40,000 offsetting revenue to that $80,000. And then lastly, just a change in our banking, just an extra service of transporting deposits to the bank of $2,300. The net effect on the use of fund balance, all of these will go to the general fund balance, is $95,000. That would increase our total use of general fund balance to $1.9 million. But I do want to point out with that $1.9 million, in our fiscal FY18 budget, we have $2.8 million at least of capital projects and one-time expenditures. So if we had cut all of those operationally, we'd still be probably about $800,000. So that keeps us stable if revenues start to go down with the economy, and it also, on the flip side, if revenues are going up, it allows us to bank more money for future capital projects or one-time projects. So we're in a good spot. Our fund balance is high, and these are the proposed amendments for the general fund, and I'll hit the CDRA session. Are there any questions? Okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We're here to receive public comment, so I will declare the public hearing opened. Do we have any I don't have any papers for it. Does anybody want to public hearing concerning these amendments?
Your Honor, seeing no public comment, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next item is the open comment period. I don't have any sheets for that, but we'll give anybody the opportunity to talk to us if they want to. This is Councilmember Young's last meeting, so if you want to talk to him, this is your chance.
You can talk to me afterwards as well.
All right. Seeing none, the next item is to consider approval of a proclamation declaring the first full week of May, starting on the first night, to Animals and National Pet Week. You want to read that resolution, Adam, or the background?
The background here, as you may recall, we had a student from Weber State come and visit the council not too long ago, and she had proposed a proclamation or resolution to be entertained by the council calling for the humane treatment of animals in the city. And that proclamation would coincide with the first full week of May, beginning on Sunday, and would be called the Be Kind to Animals and National Pet Week. I think the council is familiar with that. The student, Ms. Tesori, was unable to attend tonight.
She's here.
She's right there. I'm sorry, I totally missed you. She's sitting right there on the third row. And she could answer questions if the council has any.
Do you want to come up and say anything?
But she's here.
I wanted to say that she put a lot of work into this. She has put a lot of thought into it, and I think it's fair to say she's been quite educated on local government and time constraints and things that have to be put into things, formalities. So I wanted to thank her for her efforts in this. This is something that I support. She's reached out to me a few times for my input, and I think this is a good way to recognize something that is an issue in our society.
Thank you. Comments? We're approving the proclamation. Do I have a motion on that?
Your Honor, I will move to approve the proclamation declaring the first full week of May, starting on the first Sunday as Be Kind to Animals and National Pet Week in Clearfield, and authorize the mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is consider approval of Resolution 2017 R20, authorizing the cooperative agreement between Clearfield City and UTA for preparation of a station area plan for Clearfield Station. JJ, you going to take?
Hello again. This agreement formalizes the partnership between Clearfield and UTA for the station area planning effort for Clearfield Station. In a nutshell, it caps the expected cost at $80,000, $40,000 from each party, and we've actually already begun the process to recruit the consultant to conduct that work. An RFP is currently on the street, so to speak, closing, I believe, on the 22nd of December. So both parties would have a plan manager that would be the point person to manage the effort, and there would be other involved stakeholders, obviously more than just one per party, but we'd have council involvement. We'd have several people from UTA involved, I'm sure, and other stakeholders, UDOT, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and so on. This would be very much like the effort that we went through to prepare the small area plan for the State Street corridor, except now focused at Clearfield Station. We'd be looking at land uses, scale, mass, types of uses, the connections, pedestrian connections, street connections, bike connections, and so on and so forth. So again, the fiscal impact, as Rich just mentioned, for the budget amendment, we'd be increasing our expenditure line to $80,000 to account for this, but also on the revenue side, $40,000 from UTA. Effort as we move forward with Clearfield Station and everything that's in the history, but now pretty much a clean slate to start over and plan for what really is our community vision. And the good news is UTA is not just respectful of that, but they want to plan their transit-oriented development properties in a way that is based on that community vision. So that's the gist of this resolution and the agreement that goes with it. Are there any questions for me?
Just a couple of things there. There's reference to UTA's TOD policy.
Yes.
Is that a document we can have access to? Are we bound? Well, two questions, I guess. Are we bound to that, and can we look at it?
Okay. This was we reviewed it back when Stadler was still in play.
Okay.
And we can send it out to the council again. This RFP and this agreement is more specifically based on the process that we arrived at for as we wrote the RFP for this project. So that RFP is in harmony with UTA's general TOD guidelines, but it's specific to Clearfield Station, right? So this agreement is, so to speak, bound by that RFP that we jointly created and put out on the street.
Okay.
JJ, can I just, that document is still in the council's Dropbox because it's in there separately, so you can probably.
Okay. And I was intrigued by the mention of public art in the documentation there. Is that, I suppose I interpret that as that's in concert with UTA's policies then?
That actually was, that was something that we as Clearfield staff felt was important to include.
Okay.
So if the council disagrees, I mean, we can certainly revisit that. But as staff, we felt that in order to create a sense of place, and this would be the same if we're talking about the State Street corridor, or if we're talking about maybe Place, or in this case, Clearfield Station, public art has a role to play. So we felt it was important to include. Yeah, that would have been absent in UTA's standardized language.
Okay. I don't necessarily have any objection to it. I mean, it's sufficiently vague.
Yeah, it doesn't commit us to anything.
We want at least 13 statues.
All we're saying there is that the plan should address public art.
Yeah.
What do we intend for public art? Any other questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, and I move to approve Resolution 2017R-20, authorizing the cooperative agreement between Clearfield City and the Utah Transit Authority for preparation of a station area plan for Clearfield Station, and authorize the mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Roll call vote. Councilmember Young?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The next one is consider approval of resolution 2017-R21, authorizing amendments to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget that we just went over a few minutes ago. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
So, y'all are probably aware I did some additional research on compensation, and because as I looked at, one of the decision criteria was related to, as a comparison between other entities, and there was some discussion about us bringing it to a median and being kind of just an analyst by nature. This doesn't seem like a good way to make a comparison, so I went in and looked at, the the size of the city based upon population, and something dealing with socioeconomics based upon median household income. And then ranked, then I also within the compensation included benefits and whether or not benefits were included. And so with that, I came up with some things and found out that Clearfield City actually ends up fairly highly compensated using those criteria, probably in the top 25 percentile of the state. So, and I think that solidified in my mind that my opinion is that we're adequately compensated now based upon that, and I don't so for our compensation to be increased, especially after that analysis.
And as having brought this up, I'd like to comment that it did slip my mind. I haven't taken the benefits ever, so I wasn't even thinking about those whenever I was talking about compensation. I think the argument can definitely be made once benefits are put in that the compensation becomes much more substantial than if you just look at the stipend.
Those are my thoughts as well. Appreciate Councilmember Phipps for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah. Well, you know, my bizarre mind, I actually enjoy doing things like that. So.
It comes in handy.
Yeah. That's why I work in a data warehouse.
Any other comments? I was brought that up. Okay, so do we want to make the motion, you amend that part?
Yeah, Your Honor, I'm willing to do this. I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2017-R-21, authorizing amendments to fiscal year 2017-2018 budget with the removal of an increase in the budget to increase council compensation, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Do we need to specify for the that we're, there's the portion where we're moving the IT, the tablets and computers and such?
Yeah, I'd like to specifically say that it is only the compensation portion of that and not or any other thing.
Okay.
So.
I would second that motion.
All right. We have a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Roll call vote. Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Young?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Any opposed? Okay, none. Passes unanimously. The next item is consider the approval of the award of bid for the 700 South 1000 West traffic signal street improvement project from 1000 West to 1500 West to Wardell Brothers Construction. We talked about this last week, I think, in work meeting. So, Scott.
Your Honor, Council, it's good to be with you this evening. Middle of November, we had a bid opening for this project. The project is to make improvements to our road on 700 South from 1000 West about 1500 West. Part of those improvements will be to put a signal at the intersection of 1000 West, 700 South, and then we will make road improvements along that stretch of road. It'll be curb gutter, sidewalk on both sides of the road. We'll put in a new water line and new storm drain line, and also an irrigation line that will be replaced in that project as well.
Is that a new irrigation line or just?
There's an existing irrigation line. We didn't want to put a brand new road over the old line, so we are in place. So we won't have that old stuff underneath our brand new road. We've coordinated that with the irrigation company. They're aware of that, and they have approved the plans as they have been designed to this point. With this project, we've had to acquire some properties at the radius of 1000 West and 700 South. There's the two properties on the corner. We've contacted those two property owners, have made arrangements to acquire those areas that we need to acquire to make the radiuses to put the curb gutter and sidewalk in. Both of those quitclaim deeds have been recorded for both properties. That has been, with this project, as we had the bid opening, there were 4 bidders that submitted bids. The low bid was $1,079,000, or what is it, $1,097,890, and that was from Wardell Brothers. It's just like to mention that we did bid this earlier in the summer, and we only had 1 bid at that time. We chose not to award it. By rebidding that, we had a substantial savings. It was $546,000 that we saved by not awarding it that time and rebidding it. We've not worked with Wardell Brothers before. We've checked the references. Everything checked out okay with them, with the references that we had. Engineers had recommended that we award the project to them. Any questions?
How far along 1000 West from the intersection are we going to be doing anything?
On 1000 West itself, we're running to the south. There's 2 properties that presently do not have curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of them. We will fill in that area with curb, gutter, and sidewalk and tie into the existing curb and gutter on the west side of the road. That pavement in front of that section of road as well is part of this bid. On the north side of the intersection, we're going up and tying in there's just the 1 property owner there, the Hamlin property, that we will put curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of that and pavement through that along 1000 West. Not a lot of area, but enough to. There's several areas of bad pavement in there that we will eliminate and will improve with this project.
So on the east side there, is that going to have, the pavement going to have to be widened more towards the east for the turn lane, or is it's wide enough?
As far as it'll follow the same alignment that's in there now as far as the curb gutter setback on the west side of that. There's, as far as the east side of the road, there's curb and gutter along the utility property already, and so we don't anticipate that we will be interfering with that. We do have to place the pole, the supporting structure for the semaphore. There shouldn't be any other issues that we would have to do on the east side of the road.
I apologize, I haven't looked at this closely enough, but the signal, is that going to have left turn lights on that signal there?
It does not have, right now it does not have that. It's a T intersection, so you know, it's not a standard cross intersection you would have. To put a controlled turn signal in, you have to do a warrant study to warrant those.
Oh.
And so that with this project, to get the signal in there, we did a warrant study, I think 3 times before it met warrant to get the signal in initially.
Okay. So you know, it's a traffic corridor down to the high school and things, so I'm not sure how much foot traffic it gets or anything like that, but I assume there's some consideration, because obviously there's going to be a lot of construction there. If there is students trying to get down that road on foot, that they'll have to be accommodated. Or is that the anticipation that it won't happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much foot traffic is there presently to get to the high school. One of the concerns we had is the vehicle traffic. And
and high school students.
Yeah. And during the construction, the documents is allowing for local traffic to get up and down the road there, but the contractor, as I understand it, would like to close it down as much as they can, just to a liability that would be created with a lot of traffic up and down the road. So they will control it and try to limit the traffic that does come up there. The length of the project is a 90-day project, and so just depending on when they get started, hopefully it won't have a big impact on the school. If they do it during the summer months, school will not be in session, so that will reduce that somewhat.
So is that what you envision the summertime then, or would it be early spring? Or
until we have our pre-construction meeting, don't know exactly when the contractor will start. Right now, I would anticipate it would be early spring that they would start, but you don't know until we actually sit down with them and see what their schedule is and what they would anticipate as a starting date.
Scott,
sorry.
Are you going to have another neighborhood meeting before construction starts?
We've not talked about, it's something that we generally don't do with projects. We usually hand out a flyer to the residents just before the project will start. That flyer gives information to the residents there about what the project will consist of. It gives them phone numbers of people to contact if they have questions.
Just to throw it out there, there's a lot of residents who are very excited for this project.
Yes. Well, I think it would be reasonable to warn them that access from that north side into the subdivision is going to be restricted. Yeah, so. But after a week or two, they'll figure it out, I guess.
Scott, I believe you did mention this, but there's a question over here. As far as on 1000 West, the sidewalks on the west side of that street will be connected both on the north and the south.
That's correct.
Where they currently end.
Any other questions?
Your Honor, I move to approve the award of bid for the 700 South, 1000 West traffic signal, 700 South street improvement project from 1000 West to 1500 West to Wardell Brothers Construction for the bid amount of $1,097,890. Approve funding for the bid amount of $1,097,980 with contingency and engineering costs of $147,000 for a total project cost of $1,244,890, and authorize the mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next one is consider the approval of the award of bid for the 1000 East Street, Clearfield High School pedestrian crossing signal installation. Scott has that one too.
Recently, we had a bid opening on this project. We had 3 construction companies submit bids. I think everybody's familiar with this project. At Clearfield High School, we have a crosswalk that the students use on a regular basis to access parking at the city park on the west side of the road, and also the LDS seminary that is on the west side of the road from the high school. So there's a crosswalk there that has a lot of foot traffic during the school day back and forth. We recently had a warrant study done at this crossing. They came back and said it does warrant some kind of control there. They was amazed at the volume of traffic, foot traffic that is across that road, as well as the number of vehicles up and down the road, and the potential for conflict with that taking place there. With that, we met several times with the high school, the seminary individuals to get their input as far as the design on this. At this point, they've reviewed it. Both of those parties are in favor of the crossing going in, and we will continue to coordinate this project as we move forward with it with them as well. The low bid was submitted by Sorensen Construction. Their bid was $84,000. What was it?
$84,446.
Okay, thank you. So that was the low bid. We did find out yesterday afternoon that there was some mistakes in the bid documents as far as equipment, the spec in that document, and so there are some equipment changes that we have to make for the hot crossing. They expect a electrical cabinet, the control cabinet for this signal, to be a pole mount cabinet, and with the hot crossing it has to be the side of it requires it to be a ground mount cabinet, so it's a bigger cabinet than what was in the specs. So that's another $10,000 change order that we'll have right up front on this project, just so you're aware of that. With this, we've also been, like I said, been in contact with the LDS Church. They have agreements in front of them as far as the reimbursement for the city, and they right now we've not received anything back from either of those entities the school district, as we met with them last, they said that seemed like a fair agreement, and I would anticipate that we would get that from the school district. The LDS Church, I have not heard one way or the other if we will receive that or not. So, but we are staying in contact with them. In fact, we've already set up a pre-construction meeting with them for Thursday, and those entities will be to that pre-construction meeting. That'll be this Thursday afternoon.
So this cost here is the total cost, with kind of an assumption we don't get anything back from the church or this district.
We're hoping we'll get some back from the church. I would anticipate that if we do, it'll have to go through their process, similar to what we would do through a process that's something that was not identified in their budget, so it might be a few months before we would receive that.
I'm glad to see the crosswalks getting widened to 65 feet. Maybe people will stay within the crosswalk. You know.
It'll be easier for them. Other thing, I'm not sure if you've been by the last couple of days, we as a city are putting a sidewalk in as well down the north property line of the seminary property with the skate park. We're putting a sidewalk there to tie into the parking lot. That way the students will have a more direct route to get to that parking lot instead of that, and that hopefully will eliminate some of the jaywalking potential as well.
What's the schedule for this then?
Don't know exactly when the contractor would start. We would anticipate they would start as soon as possible. We will find out Thursday in our pre-construction meeting.
So this could be done during the winter construction months?
It could. One caveat to that is, as we've talked with the school district, they said that they're concerned with how that will impact the students back and forth. Don't know if they would want us to hold off until school is out. We'll entertain whatever they want to do there. I don't anticipate that, but they made some comments in one of our earlier meetings of what if we wanted to hold off and do it after school's out. So we'll see what they want to do.
And what's the length of time it take to put this in, they figure?
I would anticipate once the contractor gets in there working, it'd probably be 4 to 5 weeks is all it would take.
It didn't take them very long to put the hot crossing up across State Street. So.
It didn't.
You know, I don't know how others feel about it, but I know it'd be more convenient when school isn't in session, but that's really needed. And yes. It may be worth saying, we just need to do it as soon as we can and not wait for school to get out.
And that's where we're at as far as the city. We'd like to pursue it, get it done as quick as we can.
It's a concern of quite a few parents.
I was saying this, I've been feeling the same kind of questions from parents of, could we do this yesterday?
Yeah.
Is there any restriction for doing the striping in cold weather as far as the type of paint that they use?
There is.
Okay.
As far as you'd like to have temperatures that are warm enough to where it'll adhere to the ground. So that'll be a concern that we'll have to work with.
Okay, so that is a little bit weather dependent.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions, comments? Ready for a motion?
Your Honor, I would move to award the bid 1000 East Street, Clearfield High School pedestrian crossing signal installation to Craig F. Sorensen for the bid amount of $84,446. Approve funding for the bid amount of, is that the correct, or is that with?
Yeah, I was just motioning to him. Are you wanting?
Do you want us to add 10,000 to that number, or?
Or is that part of the?
With the contingency, okay. Okay, so then to continue, approve funding for the bid amount of $84,000 for a total project cost of $107,446, and would authorize the mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That's the end of our items. We'll go into communication items now. Since we last met, a couple of weeks ago went to the lunch at the Job Corps along with the mayor, and they had this time, sometimes it's just lunch and a little presentation. This time they had the students out with whatever it is they do, showing us their electrical and IT and all of the things that they're learning down there. I thought that was very interesting. I talked to the person over the construction department or classes, because on their program it said they build gazebos and restrooms, and I think there's a possibility there that we can work with Job Corps on getting our restrooms and some of the other things built in our parks. I've talked to him and Elise, the head of the Job Corps down there, and they're saying they always are looking for projects. So Eric has got the information for, I think his name is Mr. John, possibly use them for some of our park projects. Attended a couple of the new businesses, open houses, Americold, and we know now why they call it Americold. And also the security title, that's a nice building. Also, last Friday, went up to Wasatch Elementary. This third grade, is it third grade students? Fifth grade students did a project because of the sinkholes around the school where the water is coming up and causing problems. And I showed them, I got the Clearfield history book from Nancy, and in there was one picture that showed, used to be behind Wasatch Elementary. Scott knows and Curtis knows about that pond that used to be there, and told them that it was filled in, and since that time the groundwater has risen and goes wherever it wants to. They thought that was really interesting that there was a pond there. A lot of them didn't know that, and a lot of the teachers didn't even know that. But so I showed that to the teachers and the principal and said it's never a good idea to fill in a spring-fed pond, because the water's not going to stop running. It's just going to go somewhere else, and you can't control it unless you make a river or a stream for it. But that was very interesting to see that. And I just want to say thank you to Bruce for his service to Clearfield City the past 8 years. Been a great asset and a lot of good input and knowledge that will be missing as you leave, but we wish you luck in your other endeavors and say thank you for your service. That's all I have. So, Bruce, do you have anything?
Yeah, I feel like as a lame duck, I've been quacking quite a bit this evening, and I'll do some more quacking right now. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with everybody in Clearfield City. It's been 8 great years. There's been multiple councils, and it's been an honor to work with people before, and I really appreciate the work that's done for the residents of Clearfield as a resident. Before I came, while I was here, it's the staff that makes everything happen in the city. I also want to publicly express appreciation. There's not a whole lot of them here, but the residents of Clearfield who've given me the privilege to serve for these 8 years, because it really has been a privilege and an honor, and I've really appreciated all of the time I've had, and so it'll be missed, but I'd welcome Carice, but he's not here. So, it's time for someone else to do it. So I thank you again. That's it.
Councilmember Peterson.
Well, to echo what Kent said, just my appreciation to Bruce as well. I remember my first door as a candidate and introduced himself when he was running, and I appreciated that someone came to my door and let me ask you questions about that there. So thank you to Bruce for being the person who ran our numbers and always being the devil's advocate as far as here's something else to look at, here's something else to consider, and I appreciated that insight, and you'll be missed. I want to just, at the end of the year, just say thank you to staff. We rely so heavily on you guys, and personally to all of the department heads that I call every Tuesday and hit with questions. I appreciate being able to have that vetting process and to be able to have that information as we make that, and especially to our police and our road crews as we roll into the winter, where you guys will be out and in the cold, hopefully not too much. We just appreciate you guys being out there, and especially this over the weekend there was a water break and a fire simultaneously on the south end of town, and the police were there doing double duty, containing the spill, and then also there at the fire. Our fire district was there, and then our road crews were there, again, doing double duty with utilities and taking care of that break. And it was great to see that on a cold night. So we appreciate that. And then also to our other department heads as well, to recreation. And we don't have everybody else here tonight, but thank you for what you do, especially at the end of this year. On to that, and to wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Councilmember Roper.
I wanted to thank Eric for coming and speaking to our youth commission. It was interesting conversation to listen to those. They took great interest in what was going on in parts that I didn't think they would show interest, like park benches. And they were very honest and very blunt with what they think of the city. So it was great to listen to them and just be a fly on the wall in the room and take it all in. I wanted to thank Bruce for his great service on the city council. You've been a great example to me as I've come aboard here over the last year, and wish you well in all your endeavors, and you'll definitely be missed up here, and hopefully we have you up here like Catherine, so keeping us in line. But I also wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a great New Year, and look forward to working with everyone for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Councilmember Phipps.
Yeah, a couple of things. I probably should have let people know that Debbie Comstock from Davis County School District, there's a program whose name I've forgotten, that they run out of South Clearfield Elementary, where they meet with parents and students once a month. And they talk about, it's mostly, they have a dinner for them, they have things for the children to do, and then they talk to parents about interpersonal skills, those kinds of things. It's a great program that they do there. But they wanted somebody, because they wanted the parents to know what kind of tools are there to be able to help them. They wanted somebody from the community to go talk about how the community can help them as parents. So through some way or another, they picked me, and so I got a random phone call from them. Anyway, I went over there and I talked about recreation opportunities and things like that. One of the things they weren't aware of was the scholarship program and things like that. So I'm not sure if you're going to have a Mongolian horde come now, but at least the word is getting more out about these kinds of things. So it's an interesting program. They meet there once a month. I don't anticipate being invited again, but it was a good chance to get to know some people. Just something that I think is really cool, the Parks and Recs Commission is in the middle of judging the holiday lights right now. They got, I think, 26, is that right, 26 entries this year. They're going to narrow it down to 10 this week, and then they'll pick the top 3 from that 10. So it's really cool. Even though I'm not a voting member of that, my wife and I got the list and drove around last night and looked at all of them, and it's, boy, Clearfield is really decorated. Anyway, I just wanted to put a plug in for that. I will be out of town from the 19th to the 30th of December, so going back for the holidays. I would also like to put, a comment on Bruce and comment on him, yeah. And then after he leaves, we'll talk more about it. Oh, but 8 years ago, we were both on the same ballot, and I didn't know him, and so I called and made an appointment, came and visited with him and his wife. They probably don't remember it, but I came away from there so impressed with him. I was thinking, this guy needs to be on the city council. In fact, I'm almost like, I probably should have pulled out so he gets reelected, but I didn't do that. It'd be really cool to serve with him on the council. It didn't work out that way, but I was really glad that he was elected, and as I watched from a distance, it's been a great asset to the city. And then I now have had for the last 2 years to serve with him on the council, and it's been a great pleasure, and he really has been an asset to the city, and I appreciate his service.
Thank you. Adam, you have a report or anything?
Just a couple of things. We sent our monthly report just right before this meeting, actually. So if you have any questions from that, please feel free to reach out. I just want to say, Bruce, how much I've grown to appreciate and respect you. And I want you to know that I feel that you are a person of very high integrity. And I'm just so impressed by the way that you've always conducted yourself, very principled. And I appreciate that. I respect it a great deal. It has been an honor to serve with you these past 8 years, and we wish you good luck. And Betty, I just want you to know how grateful we are to you for your support and for giving him to us on every Tuesday night for the past 8 years, and now you get him back for a little while. So thank you. I've never sat in your shoes or yours either, Bruce, and I don't know what that's like to be an elected official, but I know that there are great pressures that come with that, and for all of you, the responsibilities that you have, and I admire the great job that you do and appreciate your guidance throughout your service on the council. So thank you.
Thank you.
2018 is just right around the corner. We are so excited. We've got a lot of great things happening, as you know, and we just look forward to that. We're so excited. Hopefully, I'm not sure if your schedules allow, but we do have the employees. If you're able to attend, we hope to see you there. We do have a number of presentations, awards that we'll be giving to employees who've really done a great job throughout the year. We do our Vision Awards and our Service Awards, those employees who are hitting certain service milestones with the organization. So we'll do all that, and it's a little bit different this year. It's a new venue. There are going to be some activities that we haven't traditionally done, and we're excited about that and hope to see you there. But Merry Christmas to all. Thank you to staff. I just, like I tell you guys, I would say it again publicly, just how great it is to work with every one of you and for the great job you do. And just want to say thanks for all your hard work. So thanks.
Thank you. Nancy, you have anything?
Yeah, a little bit to make sure we get on your calendars. Again, the Christmas party is Friday at 6:30 at Weber State University. We have the farewell dinner for Councilmember Young at 6 p.m. at Roosters. And on the January 2nd, we have the oath of office at 8:30 a.m. That's a Tuesday. Governor Herbert will be coming to administer the oath to our newly elected officials. And Trevor is planning on taking your pictures that day so we can update your pictures on the wall. If you're unable to attend that event, please let me know so that we can get you another night or day. On January 9th, we have policy session, but at 6 o'clock, you'll be having dinner with a majority of the legislators that represent Clearfield. We'll start that at 6, so our policy session will start at 7:30 that night.
Second in the evening?
No, nothing January 2nd in the evening. January 16th, we are planning a work session, and then our regular schedule, January 23rd, work session and policy session. Just wanted to express my appreciation to being able to work with Bruce these 8 years as well, and to his good wife Betty, and all that they've done for the city. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other staff reports?
I do have one other item. Just wanted to make an announcement. If you were not aware that our former mayor, Don Wood's mother, passed away, and we'll be sending flowers. The viewing is tomorrow night at Lindquist Mortuary from 6 to 8. The funeral is going to be on Thursday at 11 a.m., and I can provide additional information if you'd like that. But I saw Donna today, spoke with her for a few minutes. But it was unexpected, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Woods at this time.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you. Any other staff reports? Park playground equipment, what are we, the swings here?
I actually included some information in the staff report, but I'll give you the good news first. The playground at Central Park, right now, the work on the perimeter wall is being done. The install of the playground itself will follow shortly after. I learned yesterday from the Northwest Miracle that we have another delay on the playground for 200 South. The wheels that carry the trolley mechanism, they're having trouble getting those from their supplier. So we're now looking into January before we receive that one. I expressed a little bit of frustration, to put it mildly, to their representative, and just indicated that if we don't see that in July or in January, that we'd probably cancel that order and move forward with something else. But I should have started with the bad news and left on a good note, but I didn't do that. Any other questions on that?
All right, thank you. Okay, we have to go in, we get to go into CDRA meetings. Do that.
Move to go into CDRA.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and we have a public hearing, so
I actually get to use the microphones. All right. So now for the anti-climax of the evening. First thing we have, first item of business we have is the consider approval of minutes from the August 8th, 2017 work session, October 10th, 2017 work session, October 17th, 2017 work session, November 14th, 2017 work session, November 21st, 2017 work session, and the December 5th, 2017 work session for the year at once.
We haven't had a policy session.
On the December 5th one, it had me as excused, but I believe I was here because down where it talks about votes, it says I voted. So that's the only correction I have.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the August 8th, 2017 work session, October 10th, 2017 work session, October 17th, 2017 work session, November 14th, 2017 work session, November 21st, 2017 work session, and the December 5th, 2017 work session.
With the amendment.
With the amendment of, that was mentioned by Director Bush.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Next item of business we have is a public hearing to consider amendment to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Rich, do you have the background for that?
Yeah, we just have one amendment to the fiscal 18 budget for 17 North property purchase. Again, we discussed previously with council for just over $1 million.
Just
$1 million.
Just $1 million. All right, so I hereby declare this public hearing open. Do we have any public comment? Just one, come on. Betty, you got to come up here and say something. All right.
Seeing no comments, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's closed. And the final item of business we have is consider approval of Resolution 2017R-03, authorizing amendment to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, which we just discussed. Is there any further discussion on this? If not, I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Resolution 2017R-03, authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Director Peterson, how do you say?
Aye.
Director Bush?
Aye.
Director Roper?
Aye.
By Director Tim for a second. But Director Phipps?
Aye. One more.
Oh, I said Director Bush.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got everybody.
That was everybody.
All right. So that was the last item of business we have. Accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we are adjourned.
Hold on a second.
I had to get it right at least once.
Ceremonial, don't say second it.
You know, the irony is that was my